I am, of course, Jacob from Political Books, and we're particularly glad to be here. We have a really special evening tonight. I'm exceptionally honored to be involved. Not only do we have some really great art, as you have seen, and some really great books, as you may or may not have yet, we also have a truly unique story, in equal parts unexpected and wonderful. And a little bit of an illustration of the sorts of things that happen when you do things on a little scale. On the one hand, Susan showed me these illustrations, or most of them, the ones that existed at any rate, so many months ago privately. It was partly out of curiosity. Here I made these illustrations. They've got some really great fantasy fashion in them. Would you like to take a look? And the idea that we'd be able to lure the author down for an international trip at the time seemed perhaps a little aspirational. On the other side, on the author's side, here we are, yes. On the other side, the idea that one of your novels would all of a sudden, sort of out of the blue, inspire an entire illustrative art exhibit, 50 illustrations and growing, in a different but neighboring country. Might seem perhaps more of an authorial daydream than a tangible possibility of something that's about to happen. But here we all are. And here you see it. Here at the shop, the bookstore, we're very grateful for the very small part that we have bringing all these things together. And as a small independent bookstore, I can't miss the opportunity to point out that things like this can happen when you're open to things, when people in communities have robust conversations about books and art and whatever people are working on in their lives at the time, and when you have the freedom to act on a local scale. So that's my pitch. Another thing, and I get loquacious, so if you've got vegetables, now might be the time. Another thing that's really quite amazing about this is this particular project, this particular happening, and Susan will talk more about this for sure, is the way in which Bethany's book, A Rogue Princess, changed Susan's relationship to her own art. Susan, of course, will talk more about this in a second, but again, if I'm the bookseller in the room and my role in life is to speak up for the power of literature, I think we have some very tangible proof. It's always a beautiful thing when one encounters a book so enthusiastically that one becomes drawn into a relationship with it. Especially when that book is just a little bit outside of the usual artistic gamut, especially the intensely curated and hierarchical space of gallery art. Also, that the world of that book would open up for you a kind of new conceptual space outside of the protocols of your usual artistic practice. An imaginative space between the past and the future, between science fiction and fairy tale, where you don't have to focus your energies on sort of conforming to the demands of existing artistic idioms. And that this can wonderfully open up a space for freedom and new originality within one's own artistic practice. And that all of this could happen because you really loved a book and were moved to spend that much more time with it and with the characters. It's kind of nothing short of amazing. So here we have it. So we're all truly fortunate to be able to see that process in such detail and with such happy results here tonight. I should do an intro for the book, and for you, do you want a bio? Susan's next. Yeah.
Oh.
I'll do.
Sure.
Let me read.
Most people.
Yeah. Bethany, is it fine if I do synopses for both?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, absolutely. Thank you, appreciate it. So, again, as the book person, a little overview for those who may have not caught it yet. Of course, Rogue Princess is the one that these are all based on. It's a young adult sci-fi gender-swapped retelling of Cinderella, in which a princess fleeing the prospect of arranged marriage meets a handsome stowaway of lowly origins, also trying to flee their failing planet. After he shows her the dark side of her kingdom, and that's Susie's turn of phrase, which we have all very much enjoyed. Unknown outside her resplendent royal world, they uncover a rebel conspiracy that could destroy their planet forever, and she is forced to make a difficult choice. The sound it was a difficult choice. I absolutely enjoyed Steve Lindsay's piano, and I hear that the soundtrack continues. In a small, Bethany will also be reading tonight from the Third Wife of Charity House. It was 2 months ago, at this point, August? Yeah. In which two brides band together to unravel the secrets at the heart of a crumbling island manor. Sound familiar? In this delicious love letter to Gothic fiction. When Emmeline Fitzpatrick agrees to marry the wealthy and enigmatic Captain Graves, who already lost 2 wives to tragic circumstances, she discovers the second wife is, spoiler, still alive, and otherwise fading, but although fading facts. To escape the Faraday curse, they must combine their courage to shed light on a ghostly truth. That's enough for me. I think everyone will agree. But I'm pleased to welcome to the stage Susan Beebe.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I don't have any prepared remarks, but I'm just going to start telling how this all started, and maybe I'll remember to say what I want to say. If you have any questions, just ask. So, you can't hear, Priscilla? Can you hear now? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, about a year and a half ago, I listened to a lot of books from the Rockland Public Library while I work in my studio, which is right across the hall. And I was working on this bobcat sculpture. And I listened to, actually, Katie Drago, who was the children's librarian. I said, can you recommend another good young adult book? And I like to listen to young adult books. I like the problems that they have, even though I'm 50 years old. I still feel like I'm trying to figure out life. And so she recommended Rogue Princess. And so right now I just want to thank all the people that brought this together. Katie Drago, Jacob Fricke, and Bethany Myers, and Jonathan Frost, and all the students that supported me and everything. Design for the website, and also my postcard and poster, and Steve Lindsay for playing the piano. And I hope that some people who looked at it early on, like Olivia Vanner, right there, and Kate Mercier, my neighbor, who looked at it and gave me encouragement. That was very valuable. So I just fell in love with the book. I was listening to this reading while I was working, so I was able to get completely into my imagination. I didn't have a book in front of me to distract me from the total experience of imagining the story. The reading by Lucy Brownhill, who's a British reader, was magical. She brought the characters to life. She did all these wonderful accents. That's why listening to books on tape is so cool, because they do these incredible accents and voices. And also, I couldn't look ahead to see what would happen in the plot. So there were some real shockers, and I was totally stunned and totally surprised by some of the twists. And so that made a huge impact too. And then I listened to it again and again and again. Probably listened to it 4 times. And then I started doing a few sketches just for fun, little pencil sketches, which seem now embarrassingly bad to me, and I hate to even look at them. And I don't really remember when I became committed to this as being a series. It just happened without my realizing it somehow. But for a long time, months, I was embarrassed to show it to anybody. And even to Jonathan, my husband. I didn't show it, I didn't talk about it, because I felt guilty, number one, about working on something that wouldn't make me any money. And also because it didn't seem serious enough. So there are a lot of people here who aren't in the art world, and some are. So I started wondering why, well, who cares if it's not serious? And what is serious? And why are certain kinds of art seen as better than others? And I realized that there's this hierarchy that still exists. You would think that an artist can do whatever they want, but that's not true. Probably no museum or gallery would ever show this. It's too frivolous. What is rewarded, what is bought, what is shown, big oil paintings are considered more important than small pencil drawings. There's a hierarchy of sizes. Big is better than small. Mediums, oil is better than pencil. Subjects, war is better than romance. Or you've got to do something political. I mean, and I have done those things. But you see what gets promoted, you see what gets rewarded and bought and shown. And this kind of thing is also sort of feminine, female. It's about costumes partly, it's about emotions. I'm very interested in the expressions on people's faces, and I always have been ever since I was a kid. I just looked at nuances of expressions, and I even used to draw little coins when I was about in 4th grade. I'd trace around coins and I'd put different expressions on the faces. I was so fascinated by how to make somebody look happy or mad or sad or scared or all those things. I also, I love books like Anne of Green Gables, and I know the author comes from that town, which is amazing. Little Women, A Little Princess, The Secret Garden, where they actually talked about what kind of clothes the people were wearing, or they gave hints. And this, because it's science fiction plus fantasy, I could create whatever kind of costumes I wanted. I didn't, like if I tried to illustrate Little Women, I would want to get it accurate to the period, so that would be a constraint. But here I could mix Victorian with space with anything I wanted to, and that was very free. Some of you may know that I spent 16 years living on Friendship, Long Island, Maine with my mother, and without electricity. And that is the darkness in this, and the moonlight are the result of those years without any electricity, living through 3 long winters without electricity, with only candles for light, and seeing how powerful the moon is, seeing how powerful the darkness is, and knowing how candles and cast shadows from the moon happen. Also, there were some things in the book that really, really touched me. Some of you may know that in 2002, I tried to save a great tree. There's a great tree in this book, and that's the sacred tree. That's the oldest thing on the planet. I tried to save a 100-year-old horse chestnut along Route 1 when the Department of Transportation wanted to widen, and did widen the road and cut down 80 trees. And the tree I tried to protect, the painting is in the hall, the elephant tree, I failed. I was arrested, taken to Knox County Jail, later I had a trial. I was able to use my painting as evidence in court. It still has a sticker on the back that says exhibit something. And then I made that angel, it's in the hall, to commemorate, and put it up where the tree stump was. And then I got attacked in the paper for creating an angel to commemorate a tree when children are being raped and murdered. And, you know, and then Jonathan wrote a defense of me saying that the two aren't incompatible. Susan works with children all the time. Anyway, so the great tree, and then the death of my mother 2 years ago at age 91, still. It's very hard, and the girl in the book, the heroine Delia, her mother Queen Talia dies, and there's a death scene. And many artists have illustrated death scenes of people close to them. So that, and I thought of Bethany Myers as a nurse, has seen plenty of death, and she described it very well. And so drawing that illustration really helped me to deal with that, and helped me heal. And so, books do affect people in very unexpected ways, as she said. And anyway, I decided, well, okay, I've internalized these hierarchies, and I never really thought about it. You taught many things without being taught overtly. You just absorbed them. And okay, I don't care, as one of my friends said, fuck the art world. I'm going to do what I want. And artists have always, when they weren't accepted, they couldn't show their work, they created their own venue. So I thought, this is the perfect place to show this work. It's mysterious, it's old, it's magical. And so this is the place I'm going to show it. And I'm not going to be embarrassed anymore. And then I started showing it to a few people. And they just responded with such delight and joy, and I couldn't believe it, that I wasn't ashamed anymore. And so I kept on and on. And now I've developed some of the drawings more than I've ever developed any drawings before. I've developed paintings to this degree, but never drawings. And so, yes, it did change my relationship to my art. That was a very astute comment. I can't think of anything more to say, but thank you for coming so much. Thank you. Neighbors, friends.
I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I would also like to echo a lot of what Susan said about art and having these guidelines in place and being very reluctant to share your artwork because you're not sure if it is going to be good enough or taken seriously. And especially when I'm writing, I find that when I erase those doubts and I just think of the one reader who is going to enjoy the story, it's freeing, and you're able to be as creative as possible. So I was really trying not to cry while Susan was talking, because when you are writing, it's a very solitary activity. You have your writers groups and you've got your family, but no one really quite understands the process like another writer. So when I am writing and you have those doubts, and I try and think of that one reader just to help myself get to the end of the book. The writing is really very hard, and I hate it. It's lovely when you're finished. That's a great feeling. But that's what keeps you going is that one person. And so just a huge thank you again to Susan. I feel like, in the vein of Anne of Green Gables, I feel like we're kindred spirits. I can't see the lamps right there, but I have them. And when I first came out, I met Susan today, and she was showing me all of her drawings. And as an author, the way my process is with my story, it's a movie in my head. So I am translating that movie onto paper the best way I can, so that whoever is reading it gets the feeling or the idea of the story. And so I have my own movie, and everyone who reads the book has their own movie. But you never know what the other person's movie is. But tonight, with the stories, I'm able to see Susan's version of the story. And it's a very humbling feeling, because when you're creating, it's something that's inside of you, and you put it out there. And even when you publish the book, or you do the painting and you send it out, and people take it and they make it their own, this is the first time that it's evidence of myself being outside of the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's always been in me, and now it's outside of me. And it was almost, it was a lovely, lovely feeling. And I'm looking at all of the scenes, and I wrote this book It was published in 2020, so right before COVID, everything changed. So that's sort of like this black void in my mind. And so it's been a few years since I've returned to the book, and because I was coming down here with Susan, I was rereading the book and rereading all of that world, going back to the world again, and I absolutely love Susan's interpretation, and it was very rewarding as a writer because you're not quite sure, you put things out and you hope that the theme is embraced or makes sense to other readers. And I look at things and I hear her inspiration behind the painting, the drawings, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, she really, she got it, but she also took it like another step further. And I was kind of teasing her because she was saying, oh, she was talking about the book. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I meant in that scene. Not at all. I was totally mistaken. She was giving it way too much credit. I'm like, yeah, totally, that's great. Absolutely, that's what I've done all along. It's so so what I'm going to do now, and again, Susan, when you were talking about how if the art is somehow people will think that the value of art is related to how serious it is or how much money it makes, because they think that's what makes it successful and worthwhile. But I think tonight proves that just putting your whole heart into something because you love it and you're getting something back from it and it's enjoyable, and other people will pick up on that authenticity and embrace it as well, what they do. What I'm going to do right now is just do a couple of readings, and I actually will have to borrow some of your books. And Susan and I were discussing which part I should read from, and just based on her pictures, and I loved all of her pictures, so it was really difficult to choose one. But I think I'm going to read from the scene that's depicted. Which one? Sorry, it was when the sister, actually, who's a great character, she ends up bumping into Aiden because he's secretly in Delia's room for an examination. Sorry, bear with me here a moment. Talk amongst yourselves. I should have borrowed your copy, Susan, because everything's so perfect. I should know this by heart. Oh, here, I'll just stand. Sorry about that. Hello, professionals. So Aiden is the love interest, and he's actually stowed away in Princess Delia's room, and her sister Shania walks in, and Shania is a very robust romantic character. So that's the last thing she was expected to find in her sister's room. Okay. The white pill had not only taken away Aiden's pain, but any power he had to stay awake. He fought to keep his eyelids open as his body was claimed by the soft bed. Delia had told him to wait until she returned, but Aiden knew his lie wouldn't hold when she talked to the Queen. His brain was trying to get him to stand, but his body wasn't cooperating. Several times already he drifted off, only to jolt awake thinking he'd heard the fast footfalls of the Queen's guard about to burst into the room and drag him away to the dungeons. Or maybe they'd skip the dungeons and execute him instead. He could only imagine the look on his stepfather's face. Then a horribly pathetic idea occurred to him. He wouldn't even be missed. There would be no remorse, Not one tear, not one regret, not even an intake of shocked breath when his stepfather learned of the demise of the son he never loved. The somber thought wiped away the euphoria. He blinked slowly. Why were his eyelids so heavy? He blinked again, but his eyes stayed shut this time. An image of the princess, of Delia, appeared. The unfathomable depth of her brown eyes stared back. Every time she looked at him, he felt he was teetering on the edge of the universe, about to spill into the galaxy, suspended in space forever. How long ago had she left? 1 minute? An hour? Aiden had no idea. The sound of the bedroom door opening jolted him awake again, but unlike the other times, the footsteps actually came into the room. All extremely vexed that you weren't even waiting for us by the lakeside when we first arrived, the girl's voice sang out, with the largest wallowing goose, I might add. And you'll never guess, she stopped so suddenly, her dress swirled around her still frame. She stared at Aiden, her mouth half open. She had Delia's coloring and similar long hair, except her braid was more intricate. She brought with her a waft of fresh air and fragrant blossoms. Even through his medicated haze, Aiden recognized the younger princess from the info screen bulletins from the palace. A basket hung from the crook of her arm. She slowly raised a finger and pointed it at him. Aiden prepared for her to scream. Instead, she said, "You're not my sister." "And neither are you," he chuckled. "Aren't we a couple of geniuses?" Then a shred of common sense seemed to make a connection in his hazy brain. He needed to escape before she alerted the guards. He put a hand to his bare chest over his heart. "Begging your pardon, Princess Shania, obviously I'm in the wrong room." Aiden swung his legs over the side and pushed himself to stand. His head swung and he immediately lost his balance, falling backward onto the bed again. "Oh," she came to the side of the bed. "Oh no, are you all right?" He felt her slap his cheek a few times. "Don't die," she said. Throwing up one of his arms in a blocking maneuver, Aiden pushed himself up to sitting. "Please stop hitting me," he said. The bed took away as a few of the pillows were slipped in behind his head. When she eased back, Aiden noticed her eyes were sparkling. "You're not here by mistake." Shania pointed to the bandaging on his side. "That's her handiwork. I'd recognize my perfectionist sister's first aid skills anywhere." Her tone was plainly accusatory. "Isn't she, though?" he replied quietly, as if Delia were across the room and trying to listen. "Was she always like that?" he asked. "Even as a little girl? This room is immaculate." Shania put her hand to her mouth and laughed. Her eyes went to the bandages again, and the stares seemed to linger. "Wait," she asked, her voice full of awe. "Did she do that to you?" It took a few moments for Aiden to realize she meant the rib injury. "What? This? No." "Oh," her gaze moved to his face. "The eye, then?" "No," he shook her head. "Not that either." "So what happened to you?" She put a hand on her hip and leaned to the side, creating an interesting curve of her silhouette. Then, because Shania hadn't screamed yet, and Aiden was enjoying the relaxation of the medicine, he simply shrugged. "Long story," he said. He noticed his shirt was crumpled beside him and reached for it. "But let's save that for another day. I really should be going." She was by his side an instant. No, she said, gently putting a hand on his shoulder, keeping him in place. "Obviously, you're still getting treatment. You've been injured, and if my sister left you shirtless on her bed, then that's where you should stay." Aiden watched dumbfounded as the young princess moved about, her dress billowing behind her as she picked up the forgotten basket and began taking items out, placing them on the bed. There were several small plates, all covered with crisp beans. "Cook had a few things left over from the banquet preparation," she said excitedly. It took a few moments, but she set up an impromptu picnic between the two of them. She pulled back the cloths to reveal what Aiden recognized as the pastry chef's specialty. Tiny cakes with sugared flowers mimicking those in the royal garden. He knew the finished product took at least a week of preparation and decorating. His mouth watered as the sweetness filled the air. In all his shifts in the kitchen, he'd never dared to snatch up one of these delicacies. Shania picked up a small pink cake with a purple flower on the top and popped it into her mouth like it was only a biscuit crumb. "So," she said, already reaching for another cake, a dark brown one this time, "I know you're not one of the pirates. So who are you? And why are you in my sister's bedchamber?" Aiden stared as she consumed another tiny cake. Classified, he answered. "Here."
She lifted a plate of white cakes toward him. It was a curious topping, like it was rolled in snow. At least tell me about the blood.